All right, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. That was a wonderful break sponsored by PepsiCo and Dreamscape Hospitality McDonald's. So we are about to get into our next session. Feel free to take your seats. The seat part of the taking. Fabulous. Welcome back to the 11th Annual International Multicultural and Heritage Tourism Summit and Trade Show. As you know, we are continuing to explore the multicultural tourism market, and we're going to talk a little bit today about destinations attracting the MICE market, meetings, incentives, conventions, and events. Some refer to the E as expos. It's all the same thing. These questions we're talking about responses that showcase successful marketing strategies, partnerships, and resources available. So I'm going to introduce our panel. We have Carson Edwards Jr., Global Sales Executive from Marriott International. We also have Jerry Horan, President and CEO of Conference Direct. And to my right, Adam Burke, President and CEO of Los Angeles Tourist Board. And another panelist will be joining us shortly. So I want to talk about some of the key factors to keep in mind: economic impact, multicultural and heritage tourism, of course, and collaboration. So I'm going to start with you, Jerry. When it comes to Conference Direct adapting strategies to attract multicultural markets, what are you up to over there?
So I'm going to take a step back on that before I answer that question. PJ, you had announced that $700 million was done this week in deals for hotels, and our job on stage here is to fill those hotels with tourism or group business. So we're glad to see deals because it makes our job easier to find hotels to place our businesses. So what do we do? We're kind of explain what our job is because each of us have a different role in attracting business. And we're my company, Conference Direct, we have 4,000 customers that represent $1.2 billion of hotel spend, and that means rooms revenue for the hotels. So our customers include, for example, SAP, Siemens, NSB, Black Engineers, United College Fund. With Adam, we deal with anime, Japanese anime expo, where it's 100,000 people attend that event. So my team works with groups, whether it's a corporation or an association. We work with those customers, and our job is to work with these guys to find a location to put their business. So we have different roles, and our role is to find, as Sheila was saying, attracting different business to the different destinations. And our job is to find that destination that works best for our customers.
Okay, thank you. So when we're hearing what you're saying today, you're going to be coming from a meeting planner's perspective.
Yep.
As you attract more clients and you also service the existing clients that you have, which are large scale and small scale events. Perfect. So with that, we'll go over to you, Carson. So tell us a little bit about what you do at Marriott and how that relates to the MICE market.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. What I do for Marriott is quite simple. My singular top-line focus is to drive the largest share of your business into our hotels. Our team handles the top 1,000 accounts within our company. I sit on the association team. I handle a portfolio of just a little more than 50 accounts that generate close to $100 million annually in business. And so we're in a unique market space because post-pandemic, there is a shift in the consumer behavior, how they buy, why they buy, and what they're buying. And one of the most interesting current dynamics is we're seeing less demand for lower tier products but a large demand or an expanding demand for our luxury or upscale. So bottom line, what that means, people are willing to spend more of their hard-earned money to have better experience, to have something that they can take back and says, I went to that JW Marriott, I went to that Ritz-Carlton, I had a great vacation at that St. Regis. So, what we do is we respond to those changes. We provide solutions for our clients, and we work with Jerry and we work with Adam to bring your business to different destinations and different hotels. So it's exciting because no 2 days are alike. The terrain is extremely dynamic. What we thought this year was going to be as far as demand is different from where it is now, and it'll probably be different 4 or 5 months from now. So the key is trying to stay ahead of the curve, understanding demand, being a solution provider for your clients, and being able to understand, when I say drive the narrative, I don't mean creating something that's false, but really understanding why your customers are doing business with you and how you can help them advance their concerns, what's important to them, and how our hotels, our different brands really play a part in that equation.
Thank you, Carson.
Absolutely.
So Adam, tell us about, with you and the Los Angeles Tourism and Conventions Board, how do you partner with travel advisors, meeting planners, and other organizations to attract and service the multicultural market and MICE?
So I think, hello,
Good morning.
Adam.
Velton, very nice to
see
meet you.
I thought we might be keeping an empty seat for Jesus. Just never know.
He had another appointment, but he told me this.
Let me back up a step, because I think one of the things when we talk about MICE business, I think in destinations all across the country, it is one of the largest unseen drivers of economic impact, and it is one of the single largest opportunities to really elevate small, diverse-owned businesses. And I think that's something that we all have to do a better job of educating our elected leaders, our business leaders about. In LA, I'll give you an example. Pre-pandemic in 2019, we had about $30 billion in total business sales from leisure. We had about 24 from professional meetings and events. And when you say that to electeds, I think people see it as a leisure traveler is more valuable. We take the approach that we need both. But the reality is, if you've got a leisure traveler who stays, let's say, on the west side, they're benefiting just one part of the community. If you bring MICE business in, it is going to benefit every single part of the community. Because if you think about it, it's not just where the events get held, it's the supply chain, because the supply chain comes from all over the region, and it's also the workforce. So if you talk about this really being an economic engine, that's a huge part of it. I think the role of the DMO is really to help be kind of the connective tissue between planners and all of our members, because I think, as you both attest to, Carson and Jerry, when you come to LA, there are so many things that we have to offer. It's how do you make it more digestible, and how do you make it really bespoke? So the approach we take is twofold. One is we really want to make it turnkey. So for a planner, the first thing is we never want to take a cookie cutter approach. We want to understand, what are your objectives for your event? What does the successful event look like for you? And then help really curate that experience by matching that up. And it goes way beyond venue sourcing. And that's why I say it's such a huge opportunity, particularly for Black and brown businesses, is because it gives us the opportunity to really elevate those diverse-owned businesses and make sure that they're part of the supply chain. So whether it be the small catering company in Crenshaw, whether it be the florist in Boyle Heights, whether it be an entertainment company or DJ, from East LA. I mean, those are all huge opportunities for us to elevate those businesses with groups like Marriott, the other hotel companies, Conference Direct, et cetera.
And that's really important, because for me and my business, Lux Worldwide Travel, I've been doing meetings, events, and travel for about 22 years. And one of the things that definitely is a differentiator is when you're talking about a meeting client, they're planning 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance due to the logistics that you need in order to put out a successful event. You're talking about submitting RFPs, which are requests for proposals, to various destinations in order to find what is the perfect fit fit for your demographic, your attendee. I think oftentimes people don't realize that when you're planning that far in advance, there are several unknowns, but that's where you want to partner with a destination that understands that and knows how to navigate any ebbs and flows in the market. And that brings us to Velton Shoel, who has joined us. He is the chair of International Site Selection Committee for Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. Welcome, Velton.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
So with regard to site selection, when you are planning as a meeting planner years in advance for whether it's your small events, your large scale events for your board, the claves, how do you select sites and what stands out for you when people are warm and fuzzy and friendly and welcoming to a multicultural and heritage tourism event like the Omegas?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We just left a Florida destination a couple weeks ago. We were in Tampa. And in Tampa, it actually was our largest conclave in history. We had 8,400 registered delegates, but we had 30,000 brothers who came to the destination. So when you talk about things from that perspective, you want to make sure that the facilities are appropriate for your group. They will be able to fit and manage the programmatic issues that you encounter. But what's equally and sometimes more important is the feeling of the destination. What are they going to offer your attendees? From an ethnic standpoint, from a service standpoint, from an ease of access standpoint. We look at all of those things as we plan and project where we're going, what we're going to do, and which destinations we're going to select. Case in point, we just released the RFP for two of our conferences, our Dr. Moses Norman International Leadership Conference, which meets every odd year, and our Grand Conclave, which meets every even year. And we just launched the RFPs for 2027, 2028, 2029, and 2030. So we are on basically planning 6 years in advance, and we're coming into the destination, and we want to really see you or the destination and how it receives and reacts to people who look like us. One of the things we have to understand is most of our meetings are seasonal. And what do I mean by seasonal? They're in time periods where hotels are not thriving or their business is not at a high demand. So therefore, there is immediately a need for what it is we are supplying. The question becomes, do they really understand who we are, what we have, and why we're important to them? The first thing that a destination wants to look at is the economic impact that you have on their destination when you say, I'm coming. Case in point, we were in Charlotte in 2022. I gotta get my head together now. I'm getting old. And our economic impact in Charlotte was $7.6 million. Okay. We went to Tampa. And it's interesting because I'm in a debate right now with the local media in Tampa. Our conclave in Tampa dwarfed Charlotte, and they're saying we produced $5.4 million. Now, and I don't know about you and your math, but my math says you need to find some more zeros. Because if we did that in Charlotte and Tampa was larger, the economic impact had to be greater. It's not going to be between 7.6 and 40 million. It's probably somewhere closer to 10. But when you talk to a destination about the fact that you have $10 million that you can generate for their local economy, now you've got their attention. And that's really the determining factor with us getting our business respected, recognized, and garnered versus us sitting there asking for them to give us a handout. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking to be respected, regarded, and revered for who we are.
You raise an interesting point, Velton. Like for myself, I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated as well. We hosted our Indianapolis convention in 2023, and we had 20,000 attendees. But often people don't think about the civic engagement and those non-registered attendees. Like when you said 8,900 bros were in there who were registered, but then another 30,000 showed up to hang out and party and be a part of the process. You know, a lot of times we don't think about those other components, which are the direct spend, which is what your conference or client brings to the table, the jobs created in that environment, the local business boost, people going to the restaurants when, you know, on the breaks and going pre and post, the media exposure potentially for that city, and all of those things that happen to enhance the experience.
You know, it's interesting because the Deltas are our sisters. They're in the Guinness Book of World Records. Does everybody know that? The Deltas are in the Guinness Book of World Records because they have the largest sit-down banquet in the world. They feed more of their delegates in their banquet than any other organization known to man. So when you start talking about impact, and you might write this down, impact creates income. If you can go into a destination and create impact like that, everybody's income rises. And that's really what's important to the people in the industry. I was blessed. I came from the other side. I was the director of sales and marketing in hotels for over 20 years. I was in the hotel business for 30 years. So I understand the dichotomy of both and what's important to everybody. We have to make sure that from an economic impact standpoint, and that is the measuring stick, that we know our numbers and we're able to expand upon how our numbers fit. The last thing I'll say is, when we talk about economic impact, it's very easy for us to satisfy the needs of mainstream Miami, Tampa, Chicago, Dallas, Indianapolis. But look around you. We need to make sure that same economic impact happens in communities where people look just like you. And when we do that, now we are making more of an impact so that our future is secured and people like us are sitting in the seats that you are 10, 15 years from now.
And PJ, if I can kind of amplify two things that you were saying, Melton. I think one of them is you absolutely should ask questions of every destination you're talking to. You know, ask about things like, you know, board governance and composition. Ask about the composition of leadership teams. Ask about the intentionality with which destinations are leaning into supporting small and diverse-owned businesses. Because to your point, it's kind of, you know, it can't be performative. So if you're going to bring your business somewhere, you have huge buying power. And I think that's part of what drives change in the industry is when companies start to see that there's a business necessity to doing that. And also to your idea of, you know, how do we make people welcome? I think if you look at it, it's remarkable what a difference there is between the international marketplace and in the US. Hotel companies, all kinds of companies understand that if you're dealing, let's say, with the Japanese market, there are certain different things you might need to do. So you might need to have slippers in the room. How many hotels do you know that if they're hosting a sorority from the Divine Nine have silk pillow covers available? What's the difference? But the industry hasn't come around to thinking that way.
And you know, when you talk about those resources that are available, you know, recently, Jerry, my father spoke at a convention that you had, an event, and you've partnered with NABHOOD. We have a Black-owned hotel directory where we make it a point to make that available on our website at nabhood.com for when people are booking hotels to know that that brand hotel right near you might be Black-owned. But what are, as a resource, what are the benefits for you knowing which hotels are minority-owned, women-owned?
So Andy and I met, and I was intrigued by the Black-owned hotels, and I said, describe to me how do you define a Black-owned hotel? And he said 51%, owned or managed. And for our company, which really is like a procurement company, our customers, we track their spend and how they're spending and where they spend their money at, whether it's Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt. We track it on what destinations our customers are booking. For example, Siemens is a customer that is very adamant about wanting to know how they are spending their money, if it's in a diversified hotel, a Black-owned hotel, or a minority-owned hotel. They want to know that, and they want us to track it, because when we present them options, there is a flag that designates this hotel as a Black-owned hotel or a minority-owned hotel, so that they can have a full disclosure when they're making a buying decision about how they're spending their money. And that's important to them. And our partnership is that we've now been able to identify on our search engine when we're looking for hotels. I have 400 associates that book 15,000 events, and they can identify, in this case, what is a Black-owned hotel. And that way we can be transparent to our customers. We can track that information and report it back to them, because larger corporations are driving toward transparency about how they're spending their money, where they're spending their money, and they want to know.
And I think that becomes so important, because not only are there tax incentives associated with spending your dollars at Black-owned, veteran-owned, women-owned properties, but you're also talking about the fact that having that detailed when you're using a software like a Cvent to put in your RFP and figure out where you're going 3, 4, 5 years, and determining where you want to spend your dollars. From a Marriott perspective, when I call up, you, Carson, and say, okay, I would like to be at a Black-owned property in Atlanta, Georgia, just as an example. Are you able to point that client in that direction? Is it all just Marriott? How does that differentiation happen when it comes to being a resource for clients looking for multicultural travel?
It's a great question, and I'm going to answer that, and I want to follow up on my esteemed colleagues share. For us with Marriott, we have to be very respectful of all of our owners. Because we have both managed hotels, and those are hotels where we have management agreements, and we basically provide the process for them to be very successful financially in creating great revenue streams with their customer base, as well as franchise hotels that are interested in Marriott as a brand and leverage that, but they have their own ownership group. So there are certain circumstances where it is public knowledge, where the owners are African American or minority owners, but it's a very delicate line for us, because we cannot lead with this is a minority owned hotel, because then that puts a hotel within our collection or portfolio at a disadvantage, and that becomes very complex. So yes, we do want to articulate and share that we do have hotels that have minority owners, and when it is appropriate, we will share that information. But we do have to be cognizant of a very fine line that we don't put our other hotel owners, who have just as much right to pursue your business opportunities as all of our other owners. But what I do want to say, and Velton and Adam, you specifically talked about it, asking questions and understanding the organization. And full disclosure, I handled the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated account. I've handled that account, I think, since 2003, 2004. Probably have seen 6 or 7 national presidents in my time. And one of the things that's important, and I want to use Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and Omega Psi Phi Incorporated, you have to help your partners, your stakeholders understand when they see sorority fraternity, they may have a warped sense of understanding of these organizations. They're thinking of frat parties and frat houses. These are community-based organizations with leaders who are very engaged in our communities. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is on the front line of the women's suffrage movement, one of the first women's organizations, along with Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and being very influential in being significantly influential in the movement to allowing women to vote in the United States of America. So that's the information that you need to bring back to your teams, because you want to level set and understanding this is a serious organization here to do serious business within our destination. So the more we understand what they are trying to accomplish, not only do we want to align why our hotel, our destination makes sense, but we also want to be a conduit for maybe helping them to identify business partners within the community. Again, I said initially, we're in the business of providing solutions. So you want to ask questions, ask more questions, and even more questions. Then you want to go back to some of your stakeholders, answer their questions, and continue to drive more questions. Because the better you understand what each other's objectives are, then you become that ultimate dream merchant for your clients, because what they're trying to do is have a successful event, whether that be financially or whatever their key indicators or key performance indicators are, and you have to drive that success for them. So it is very, very important. And on the flip side, for our meeting planners, when you create your RFPs, please look at an RFP like your marketing plan. And if you were going into a bank and say, hey, I'm asking you to lend me $500,000, they're going to want to understand what you're about, how you make money, what your team looks like, what are your expertise, what does year 1, year 2, and year 3 look like. So you have to drive that story as well for your hotel and your CVB and your city partners, because that helps them to not only better understand what your business is about, but then they can help provide solutions for you, because we like to think 2 and 3 steps ahead. We want to not only be able to provide solutions for what you've written down on paper, we want to say, hey, we notice this is important to you. Here's some experience we've had in the past. Can we find a way to collaborate on this particular initiative to drive a better outcome for you? So that's something I would like to share with everyone.
And Carson, that is so important, because when you're talking about the relationship of the stakeholders who are all involved, so when you're part of professional associations, whether it be a travel association, a meeting planner association, we partner with the Coalition of Black Meeting Professionals, we partner with other organizations. We try to educate on the fundamentals of when you're creating a meeting as a travel agent or a meeting planner, your RFP, what are those types of things that you need to include to be able to deliver on the KPIs that your client wants? I think it's also important, you know, when you're talking about, for me, I live in Houston and I'm a part of my local CVB. When you have your stakeholders, the members that are part of your association, and you're helping them connect with the RFPs that are submitted to Los Angeles, what resources, training programs do you have to ensure that they're able to point their clients in the right direction, or the RFPs that have come to you, that you're putting them out to the appropriate vendors that need and can assist them?
Sure. So I'll talk about LA first, and then kind of also nationally, because I think you hit on an interesting point, which is there's a lot of talk about red state, blue state. I would argue there's no such thing, right? In every state, you have really a mix of different people who are very supportive of the work of equity and inclusion. So I'll come back to that in a second. But in terms of LA, the first thing is CVent has been a tremendous partner, because every single lead that we have come in goes out to all of the hotel communities, so they all have an equal opportunity for it. The second thing is we fully integrated that into our CRM platform. So if you think about it, you've got to marry the two, because for us to really be able to promote the local businesses who support MICE business, it's important they have the most up-to-date information. So the fact that we can take a direct feed from our CRM platform and make sure that information is fully integrated into CVent makes it very easy for us to find the right connections. But you can't forget the people part of that. So we actually have a destination services team that focuses specifically on self-contained business. Because for them, often it might be a professional event planner, but as often as not, it might not be. It might be, you know, let's say a 200-person architectural firm, and the CEO tells his or her PA, hey, I need you to plan this event in LA. So destination services is really designed to be the one, very much like Carson said, you know, you want to ask the right questions, you want to listen, and then you help make it easier for them so they can get connected. But I think the broader thing is, I mean, I want to give a huge shout out to Philly, because, you know, they were really on the forefront of doing this work.
Yeah.
But let's 100%. But I do want to encourage people, while, you know, in LA, I think it's important to be authentic. You know, LA is one of the most diverse and inclusive communities in the world. That's why I love living there. I'm from Chicago originally. I love living in LA because it is truly about belonging. It is truly about embracing that diverse and inclusive communities are stronger communities. But that said, I don't want to see people assume that because it happens to be, I'll use 2 examples, Florida and Texas, that you shouldn't be bringing their business there. Because as you said, I mean, you can have a very positive experience in those destinations as well. Destination International had their annual convention in Tampa last week, and it was phenomenally well done, but they were using their buying power to bring about change within the destination. They were doing things to support the local food bank. They were creating listening sessions to really have local leaders engage with people from the community. And the same thing when you look at Texas. Last year, San Antonio hosted IPW, which is the world's largest international inbound trade show. You're going to find amazing partners all over the country. You just ask the right questions.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say something because great points are being made. DEI went to Tampa. We went to Tampa 2 weeks prior to that. And our conclave was called a conclave with a purpose. You know, Carson talked about the Deltas and the suffrage movement. We went to Tampa and a lot of other organizations pulled out. We got a lot of heat from our membership across the country about the fact that Florida's a red state, our governor is against minority initiatives. Why would you go to Tampa? We went to Tampa to make a difference. We went to Tampa to show everybody that there's value in our business, and the mayor of Tampa and the community came out and embraced us. And we did some incredible things. We had a march where we had 2,500 people show up to march through the streets of Tampa in a silent march to protest against some of the legislation that it's being passed. We had a community forum where we invited the presidents of all of the Divine Nine to come in and speak to the local community about not what Omega Psi Phi was going to do, but as a group, the power and impact that the Divine Nine is going to make moving forward in our political decisions. You saw evidence of it the other night with Kamala Harris and what happened when she came out as a presidential candidate. She raised more money in 48 hours than in the history of our country. So we have power, but we have to understand how to focus it, where to focus it, and collectively move things forward.
To your point, the mayor of Tampa is the first openly gay mayor of Tampa in history. I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised to hear that. But look at when MLB pulled out of Atlanta, right? I can pretty much promise you MLB was okay. The team owners were probably just fine. You know who wasn't was all the hotel workers, taxi drivers, restaurant workers, local attractions who didn't have an all-star game. So I think it's directing that spend in a way that's beneficial to the community, but that also raises consciousness.
Absolutely.
Can I piggyback on that? Because that's a very important set of facts that both you gentlemen share. If you're in this industry long enough, you're going to run into a situation where you have made a financial commitment contractually to be at a destination, and then all of a sudden there's a piece of legislation passed for whatever reason that can be in direct conflict with the mission of your organization. And I think what's important to remember is a separation between the legislative body and the men and women who work in the hotels, who work in the local community, and who really depend on that business to support their families. And Velton gave a perfect example of what you do when you're in that situation. You over-communicate. We're going here, but we're going here with a purpose. I had a very similar situation about a year ago in Texas, where it was the physicians group. And when some of the legislation came out of Texas, they really wanted to pull out. And so I had to get on a call with their board and say, you know what, that doorman, that bellman, they're not responsible for this. They're depending on your business to come through that door. And I said, what better opportunity to amplify your message of diversity, equity, and inclusion by setting up specific events to show why it is important to drive that message of inclusivity, and how you partner with organizations within those communities who don't share the same perspective and maybe some of the legislators. So there's going to come a time where from a contractual standpoint, you're in that situation, but you over-communicate and you use that as an opportunity to drive that message of why we're here. These men and these women depend on us, and you know what? they're welcoming all. They're making sure we come in here, we have the best experience for us to conduct the type of business we want to conduct. So I would say really look at that and understand there's a difference between what legislators may think and the community who are really going to be servicing and interacting with your attendees.
And with that, we have a few minutes left. I want to turn it to you, Jerry. When we talk about success stories and some of the great things that you've done with your diversity conference and future initiatives, do you want to highlight some of those as best practices to share with the other CVBs and tourist boards and DMOs in the room?
Yeah, we created a D24, D25 diversity event. And it was really at the calling of our customers. I mean, we serve our customers, so what I have is our qualified customers come to this event and we talk about exactly things that we're talking about here. Issues that, as they always say, if you get uncomfortable, that's a good thing, because we're going to talk about things that not everybody in the room is going to agree with. On the same side, when you have, the state, individuals from the state of Texas, state of Florida, and then you have different, opinions about those legislative issues and how it impacted groups, because the topic that we're talking about right here was very material about should I stay or should I go? And that was a big conversation for a lot of our customers that just at our recent event. And there was a lot of passion around those types of decisions that are legislative decisions about why did you stay and why did you go. And I'll share with you one thing that really kind of cinched many of the groups to stay was the reason they went out and polled their local members in Florida and said, should we stay or go? And Occupational Therapy, Anthropological Association, American Counseling Association members in Florida unanimously said, you got to stay. You got to stay and support our state and our workers and the hotel workers, as Carson mentioned. So, but not every group stayed. Other groups have pulled out and made a movement because they can't support some of the legislative issues. So my conference, just like this conference right now, is talking about issues today, issues tomorrow, because what we do know, legislative will change, different issues will come up, and we talk about DEI and how that is affecting and hiring. We talk about how our customers are spending money. They want to spend money. Sheila has that great brochure about who is a local vendor that for a wine purveyor, who do I buy my food from? Are they local? Are they minority-owned businesses? And our business is getting much more sophisticated in terms of wanting those transparency and those things for our event. So my event, at this specific event, we talk about those issues.
Thank you. So Adam, as we close, best practices, successful initiatives.
I think the main thing I would say is, be true to who your destination is. I think people want to know that what they see when you promote the destination is the actual experience when you get there. So I think it's really lean on what makes your community unique. For LA, we have a lot of attractions going for us, but the single biggest thing is we hear when people come to LA, it's a sense of personal freedom. It's a sense of belonging. So I think the best practice is just authentically promote your destination.
All right, Velton, best practices?
I guess I'll say this. Change is going to happen whether you think you're ready for it or not. So understand that you have to, in this industry, you have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Because what happens today is maybe not what's going to happen tomorrow. So get a thick skin, be true to who you are and your word, your principles, and never sacrifice your values for profit.
And Carson, very good. Best practices.
I would say understand what the cultural competency is of the destination, the hotel, and any business partner. And it is not a crime not to know. It is a crime not to want to seek to understand. And so find out what they're doing in that space, how is that relevant to you, and then how you may be able to fill in some of the gaps they may have as far as the cultural competency. And then lastly, individually, the 5 Ps I learned from my track coach at Howard University. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
I love that. Thank you. Well, I would definitely want to thank my wonderful panel, Adam, Belton, John, Jerry, and Carson. Thank you so much for this wonderful panel about meetings, incentives, conventions, and events. I'm now going to bring our next presenter and moderator to the stage, Dr. Andy Ingram, to prepare for his panel on working with chambers of commerce and doing business with CVBs and DMOs. Thank you.
Good job, thanks. Good job, thanks. Good job. Good morning. It's always tough to follow my daughter, but with such an esteemed panel, I'm going to try my best. If I fall short, please don't hold that against me. Multicultural tourism continues to grow. And I tell people from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it becomes more important as we integrate businesses into the tourism industry. You're going to hear from a variety of people in a few minutes while they get mic. Chambers of Commerce, DMOs, CBBs. And if I was you, I would figure out how to capture part of this growing market. I tell people all the time, as population increase, as people get more disposable income, they're going to continue to travel. Last week, Blue World Travel left Fort Lauderdale with 4,000 African Americans on a boat for a week cruise. They've been doing that for the last 10, 15 years. And it just gets bigger. When she first started, she could only get a couple of hundred people. Then she got a half a ship, then a full ship. Now she's doing 5 ships a year with travel around the country. What happens when you bring a convention to a city? They spend money after money after money. Now, if I was a bus company, if I was a decorator, then I would figure out how to sell my services to them. Well, these folks will tell you what they do, the role that they play, and how we close the gap in terms of spending. So please join me in welcoming the panel. Panelist members, are you ready? Ed? Petra, Shahiva, and Maxine. Please give them a hand as they join us on stage. Go all the way down. I'm going to sit in the middle. Ed, understand? So, we always talk about the relationships, but I'm going to start to my extreme right. Please introduce yourself in 30 seconds and what you do.
Good afternoon, everyone. Familiar faces in the room, but for those who don't know me, my name is Petra Brennan. I am the Senior Director of our Tourism Business Enhancement with the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. This initiative is led by our Multicultural Department, and as we discuss further, I'll share with you some more opportunities and engagement and the work that we do.
Hi.
Shahiva?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shahiva Jarrett-Gellin, and I am the founder of the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Florida Association of Black Chambers, just bringing our black businesses together, training them so they're prepared for the opportunities of today and tomorrow. Thank you for having me.
Maxine?
I'm Maxine Jemison, and I'm the Multicultural Sales Manager from Greater Discover the Palm Beaches. I represent bringing multicultural business into the Palm Beaches, diversity, ethnicity, and all the wonderful things that we have to offer them and to prepare for them. I'm ready to tell you about today.
Ed?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ed Ponder. I'm a long-time hotelier, and these days I operate a company called Red Knob MG, which consults companies, hotels, restaurants, and other front customer-facing staff on their customer services and engagement.
So, when you come to a city, what a lot of destinations didn't understand many years ago, how important diversity was the overall product. And then all of a sudden they discovered it, and so they started developing programs. And I'm always reminded what happened in Miami during the tourism boycott. People decided not to come. And in the first month, I think you lost $50 million in convention business. Today, we're now faced with some of the same problems when our governor decided that there was an issue on diversity. And I know because we had a great diversity program at FIU, all of a sudden we had to move it out of Florida and move it to New York City. So I'm going to ask Shahiva, how important it is to your members to work with CVBs to figure out how your members can get part of the tourism dollars.
Thank you for the question, Andy. It's extremely important. It's no surprise to all of us in the room that our neighborhoods, our historic neighborhoods, are typically under-resourced and underfunded. That is the same for our organizations. So as a chamber, through our advocacy, it's our mission to go out there and seek out opportunities for our members. And the tourism industry is absolutely an industry that Black businesses must be in. So we have, Andy, to your point, reached out to our CVB to conduct training. How can we partner with them to do training? They're the experts. They know what it takes to work with a CVB so that our businesses are prepared. But in addition to that, people are coming to the destination to have a variety of experiences, and the Black experience is important. Is the website featuring Black businesses, Black churches, Black event spaces, and other Black-owned businesses that can enhance an event? If it's not, then it should be. And so we engage with our CVB to feature our businesses, to do the training. But then in a recent example, and I really had to push for this, I asked for a list of the conferences and the meetings that were coming. So I, as a chamber president, could interface with these folks who are planning meetings in our area and literally match them with businesses in our chamber. Our businesses cannot grow if we're not getting matched, and new revenue and continuous revenue is not coming into our businesses and into our communities. So it's a must that we work with our CVBs, because you all are bringing in all of this money. We heard just in the other panel, 8,400 registered folks to the conclave in Tampa, 30,000 people coming to a destination. Fort Lauderdale has those numbers. These people, these tourists, have to tap in to our Black spaces and with our Black businesses to spend that money. That's how we grow and build wealth in our community.
So Petra and Maxine, both of you guys work in the diverse space. Is Miami really interested, is West Palm Beach really interested in attracting diverse business, Black groups?
Absolutely. I'm here to represent that commitment today.
Absolutely, certainly. When we think about the unique charm of our destination, that is certainly at the table, and we are very dedicated to that effort, putting budget behind that, even carving out the role of my work, the role of what I do is around that effort. So it's intentional. We have been doing this for over 10 years, and we find that incorporating this initiative, which is our Tourism Business Enhancement Program, because what we discovered that there was a gap. We find that not all the time some of these small businesses are familiar with the role of a CVB. So that's key. The key is awareness and recognizing their business, the nature of what they do. We engage them, and then we start the dialogue, and at that point, we let them know, you're in Miami, why aren't you getting a piece of this pie? Why aren't you getting some of these dollars? And certainly not only through awareness, but through training, because we do realize that training is important. You mentioned that. It's not all apples and oranges. It's really a mixed bunch. There are some businesses that are really ready to come to the table at the CVB, pay the dues, and they understand what it takes. But there are some that do need some training. You talked about website. We want to ensure that they're ready. And being ready is part of the work that we do with our tourism business enhancement program, technical assistance, workshop, and also business referral opportunities. We want to know the uniqueness of your business and matching that with the need of that meeting planner that wants to have that unique service to lure a group back into our Miami destination. Repeat business is important to us. So what we certainly do is the meeting planner is saying, how can we create a unique Miami charm? Maybe it's incorporating an art initiative in the program. So we have to think outside the box, and we know through the unique services of our small business community, that's that unique charm. That's that authentic piece that makes our customers come back.
Wow, what passion.
Exactly.
What are y'all training these folks over at the Greater Miami CVB? I guess that's why we're here, Petro. Maxine and I have a long history, and I think Palm Beach got a coup when they brought her there. Because most of us think of Palm Beach as I don't want to use the word lily white, but I guess I just did. But it has this thing that it didn't want to attract business. I hope you don't mind if I say this. One of the biggest pieces of business I got was I was watching TV one day, and a reality star and a football player was trying to plan their wedding. And it said the hotel, not the destination, was not interested in the wedding. Now, as a hotelier now, I now know why they weren't interested, but another story. And so I said, wow. So I called the news producer, and I said, pass my number to the reporter and ask him to call me. I think I can help this couple. Make a long story short, I was able to take that wedding, move it offshore. That group spent $1.7 million with me in St. Martin.
Wow.
We stayed at Donald Trump's old house, which is an 11-bedroom house. He wasn't president then. Had I known he was going to be president, I wouldn't have booked the house. But it is about opportunistic. And Maxine understood that so much that I used to have a client that's not too popular now, and my budget for that weekend was $2.7 million. I had to spend every weekend, and I was spending it in Miami. Well, one hotel irritated me, and I went to Maxine, and I said, Maxine, I want to bring, I think we had about 600 or 700
Yes.
black people.
Yes.
Were they all black?
Maybe a little more, yes.
Multicultural people.
Yes.
To your hotel. And I remember meeting with the hotel management and getting them. And a lot of people had to be comfortable. But at the end of the day, thank you, Joe McCrae. Is that Joe McCrae for coming in late from the Miami CVB?
You're bad.
Joe is my account rep, and he books all of our business, and he's a real superstar. And he's booking about 8,000 Indians in 2027. But it's people like Maxine that when they go to Palm Beach, they can sensitize the folk to how important the business is. Maxine, new in Palm Beach, when you first said you were going, I said, are you nuts? But tell me, is there a real commitment to attract diverse market in Palm Beach?
Absolutely. Well, we're doing what I call breaking perceptions, and
I like that.
we're getting into the destination welcoming diverse business. We have, as it relates to minority suppliers, what we do, we have a program called Welcoming Wednesdays, where the community is invited to learn about what's coming into the destination, what groups are coming in, what they need, and how they can partner with them. Not only that, we do advocacy. We have a representative from the Palm Beaches that will go up on the Hill every so often, every month. And we will talk about how we can promote the minority business in the destination, how they can get funding and grants to be able to keep up with the demands of the travelers that are coming in. We have pop-up shops depending on what the group is. We are on the spot. We have a destination services department that works along with sales, and once we book a group, they're assigned to a destination services manager. Once they have that opportunity to meet the destination services manager, they will have enough details from sales managers like myself to tell them exactly what the group needs, and they will partner them with those businesses that are in the destination. I have a RFP right now that's like a PhD, that's like a PhD from, from one of our meeting planners that is requesting every bone of minority business that is in the Palm Beaches.
Nice.
So we're very
nice.
So we're very committed, and we've just established a DEI magazine. We have when I went to the coalition meeting last year, I had a presentation from...
Tell them what the coalition is, though.
It's a coalition of Black meeting professionals.
Good.
And we had a presentation from one of our destination persons, and she had the spoken word. And in our way of understanding the spoken word, she was able to expose the Palm Beaches. She called names, associated businesses, did a remarkable rendition of diversity in the Palm Beaches. And now we have tailored it, not for just me, but for all our sales managers to use to introduce people to the diversity in the destination.
Very nice.
You know, so you just heard passion. It goes beyond what the destination say they would do. If you hire and find the right individual that are committed, you can get the job done. It becomes a lot easier. When I called Joe McCrae and I said, Joe, I want to bring a piece of business here, I don't have to convince him. I know the destination is ready, but those relationships are so critical. What I find more often, the relationships aren't there. And when I think of my next panelist, Ed, I used to call Ed, and I still do, the super concierge, because he became the first person of color, first African American, to be president of the Concierge Association in South Florida. And anything you need, he can find. But let me tell you what's most impressive. What's the lady that was married to the fella that has that beach party? Well, Tommy Mottola.
Tommy Mottola.
As getting old as I am. Can't remember. She sang the Christmas song, Mariah Carey.
Oh.
Let me tell you how creative Ed is. So when celebrities come to the beach, we didn't have African American owned businesses on the beach. Let me tell you what Ed used to do. He used to find African American vendors in the city, and he connected them. So I remember Mariah Carey wanted a hair done. You think I remember this? Wanted a hair done one time, and Ed just got a bunch of hairdressers and started doing it. We did a photo shoot one day with a magazine. We called Ed, and we said we want all Black vendors. Ed, is that a commitment? Is that something you see that just makes sense, like Shahiba?
Yes, it has to be a conscious commitment. Listen, I mean, I'll say in this private family room that supporting our businesses must be a commitment because it's not easy. There's a tremendous investment that hotels have in their properties, and it's a tremendous risk taking our guests that we do all this work to market to bring to the destination, to bring to our properties, to send them out to vendors, white, black, brown, whatever group, that are not prepared and qualified to receive them. So yes, it has to be a conscious commitment to support business, and I commend the GMCVB and the Multicultural Tourism department as well for what you're doing with small businesses and preparing them, because I tell my clients now that customers have choices. There's so many options. available to them in all of our destinations. But customers also have voices because they speak loudly on social media and otherwise about the effect of what their experience is. And it was nerve-wracking sometimes, Andy, you know, sending people to minority businesses or bringing vendors in from minority businesses. I was sharing with someone recently, I had a group that wanted a black restaurant experience. Large group, they want the ladies, and they wanted to go to a black restaurant, and I took them to, I recommended a black-owned restaurant outside of the beach. And the only way I could ensure that this group would have the kind of experience that I could be proud of and that wouldn't get me and my team fired, because this was a large group, was for me to literally get on the bus with them and ride with them 30 minutes to the restaurant. So it is a commitment we must continue to have, but it's not easy.
No, and the commitment is worth it. I mean, most of you that took the bus to the ship last night, it's a black bus company. I would have never known about that firm if I hadn't talked to Connie and her team to say, what buses can I use? Because at the end of the day, you have the power to determine where your money is being spent.
Correct.
And I always tell this story, and the destination is not here, so I'm going to call the name. So at the end of the day, there was a major convention doing a site visit at this destination. And they looked around and they were getting their site farm tour. And I remember the person who's a good friend of Maxine, a good friend of Connie, having an issue. They saw no people of color any place they went. And they informed the destination, thank you for the matter of fact, at one of the locations, they said, do you have any black folks that work here?
Very good, yeah.
And the person who asked that question is one of my mentors, and Connie and Maxine, is Anna Ponte from the NAACP. And I remember getting a call from the economic development person, Norm Taylor in Fort Lauderdale, and said, can they do that? And I said, it's their money. And I was then summoned to the chamber, to the commission to form a black tourism task force. Those are the changes we impact. Shahiva, we're just starting, did I say that right?
Shahiwa.
Okay, Shahiwa. Right, okay. I'm a foreigner, I'm trying to get my English down to great science. You and I have been looking at Fort Lauderdale because we think it has tremendous potential.
Correct.
It is about how do we educate people that just don't get it yet? I mean, in Palm Beach, good thing you did, but Maxine, you can always call Ed, or tell them to hire an assistant and bring, oh wait, I can't say that. I think the guy.
A few folks, sorry, Connie.
I'm sorry. Robin is sitting in the audience. Robin, let me acknowledge Robin sitting in the audience. That's Maxine boss. Hopefully anything I say, please don't fire her. I love that. But how do we sensitize, and Ed said something about getting the business community ready so they can provide good service. How do we sensitize our community leaders that we have businesses that have the capacity and ability to deliver good quality service, and your chamber work to help make these businesses what I call tourism ready? Correct.
It's through advocacy, Andy, and which you know very well. It's interacting and forcing the hand of the CVB directors. We have to get the numbers. You're doing numbers here in Miami as well as Palm Beach, showing them the impact. Like I mentioned on the prior panel, you have folks coming in, 8,400 registered, 30,000 folks that came to the area that had economic impact. That's what they care about. So we have to show them the numbers, but we also have to you talk about sensitizing. Allow them to understand that tourists want to have a diverse experience. They can get a beer and wine and a beach at a lot of different places. They don't have to come to a Fort Lauderdale. So that's my message. What else is going to hold their attention while they're here? And the tourists speak. They want a rich, authentic experience. And in Fort Lauderdale, we have that. We have African American food, we have Jamaican, Haitian, Ethiopian. We have a wide variety of foods, areas, museums, restaurants, churches, etc., various experiences that they can have. So when they leave, they remember the experience and they want to come back. And I think that is the second part of that value. The dollars that we bring in, but also the fact that people want to have that diverse experience that they will talk about and that will bring them back and others back. I'll just give you this one example that I use when talking to these folks to get them to understand. Nobody thought that after Hurricane Katrina, anybody would be going back to that lower Ninth Ward. I went there for a work conference. I used to work for the federal government for 18 years. They did a conference because it's the federal government, they wanted to infuse money. They were doing Hurricane Katrina tours in the black neighborhood in the Ninth Ward. Because people wanted to see. And so I think it goes back to just us as black people ensuring that others understand our value no matter what, and our impact culturally, and therefore there's a monetary impact as well. We have to impress that point. And so I think I'm gonna be grabbing some of my partners from South Florida to come up to Fort Lauderdale to say, this is what we've experienced. There's value in this market and in our people.
Ed, you're now training people in your new business to be tourism ready. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a commitment because I realized, first of all, we need to excite the community, black businesses about the power of tourism. You know, I don't know that we still understand as a people the actual power of tourism, the power of the tourism dollar in Miami-Dade County, with 24.2 million people that came to Miami-Dade County in 2022. And they spent $19.1 billion. And I think, you know, earlier the panel talked about what tourism want, where they're traveling to. Well, they're coming to destinations. They're coming to Florida, they're coming to Miami, they're coming to Fort Lauderdale and to Palm Beach. They have money to spend. We're not an easy destination to go to because it requires money. We just have to have the right. So I tell my clients that we must have quality, we must have value. I didn't say affordability, value. Because our customers come and they're ready to spend 0 to zeros. And we have to be prepared to provide quality, value, consistency.
Correct.
Is really, really important. And so those are things I preach to our customers, my clients, as well as kindness. Because they choose from whatever part of the world they're in to come to this small destination called Florida, called America. And then they choose to go to Florida. And then they choose to go to Miami Beach or downtown Miami. And then they choose to go to this hotel and this restaurant or this store or this salon. That's a choice. And we have to do a better job of putting ourselves in positions as companies to be first in thought for that choice. And that's through partnering with organizations like the bureaus, training, making themselves tourism ready, so when someone comes, they see the choice they made was a right choice. And they can now use that person, that client, to be an ambassador for the destination.
You know, that's interesting. When we were going to book the Eden Rock when Maxine was there, and I know it's not popular to talk about this former client, but of mine, Connie's laughing. I'm trying to figure out how to craft it, Connie.
Don't do it.
I don't do it. I don't talk about it. Okay. But anyhow, one of the things I said to him when he said, "You're gonna move where, to the Eden Rock?" I said, "Guess what? They have a black sales director who's a good friend of mine." And he said, "Really?" So I've been coming to Miami, but we always stay at this hotel. And he got a chance to meet Maxine, he got a chance to meet Connie, and the rest is history.
History.
Real history. Thanks, Maxine, for the reminder. So what's important, though, and what's important to him, is exactly what we knew, and that connectivity. You said kindness.
Yeah.
And so it all played that I want to do business with my friends. A motto we have, Joe, you know this, at the National Coalition of Black Media Professionals. And if we develop that friendship view, we can grow business. And I talked about one of our success stories, and we have many. A gentleman, an attorney, came here last year, and we have this supply diversity that we do to get businesses ready to do business with the hotel industry. And he met Bill Fortier from Hilton. Bill passed his card on to the supply diversity. We kept talking. He kept calling our office because he became a member, and he said, I'm trying to get this done. The folks told them, to your training ed, what you do, here's what you do. Cigna opened in Atlanta, was his first hotel. He did such a fantastic job that they're rolling out his program, employment, staffing. His revenues increased by $8 million. It is the power of relationships in the industry. What could we do more of, because I see we're just about at time, what could your destination do more of and better? Please don't say anything that's going to get you fired. Same thing with you. Air doesn't work for anybody, and only you work for your son and your husband. Your husband is not going to fire you. So I'm going to ask the bureaus, what could we do to enhance the experience of the guest that's coming in?
As a tourism bureau, I certainly believe that it's important to show up for a small business. When we introduce ourselves to them as a tourism bureau and they learn the aspects of it, they join the bureau, it's also equally important for us because some of them are museums, they're small, they're different unique businesses, and they're inviting us in their space. It's important that we show up in their space as well. We're getting ready to roll out our multicultural guide. Each cycle when we produce this multicultural guide, it has so much resources that supports our small business community as well. We certainly would never go to print without getting it vetted also from our community stakeholders.
That makes sense.
That's important because as a marketing organization, we do a great job of the splash, the marketing, the promo, but when it comes down to the grassroots, that authentic feel and touch, it's important to connect with these stakeholders that are telling these stories. So that has to be at the table. We have to show up for them.
Thank you. 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
She took all your time, that's why.
What we could do more, and we have started along that trail, is more involvement and more education. We expose our minority businesses. We have the Tourism Summit. We have the Welcoming Wednesdays. I got together with our social media department to have a reflection on a minority dealer every month. So we could do more in exposing them and what they have to offer so that not only the people that I'm targeting to come to the destination will know, the people who are looking at us will also know what's there to offer.
Good. 10 seconds.
We need to be better ambassadors to our communities about the benefits of the tourism dollar.
5.
I love that. So I'll say one up you on that. We agree. And then as a chamber president, I've been pushing all of my chamber presidents, our 22 black chambers around the state, to create tourism and creative economy councils so that they can offer internal training and get our businesses prepared for the industry, but then also teach them about the opportunity.
Andy, I want to say this. As black people, we benefit greatly from tourism. But as black people, we don't tell that story. And so we don't have kids and youth growing up with excitement about the tourism industry. And we just have to do a better job of that to make people realize we almost don't like tourists because we don't see the benefit. Yet we all benefit, but we don't tell that story.
Please join me in thanking this panel, experts, passion. Thank you very much. And we're going to start our next session almost immediately after this. Thank you. Thanks, Petra.
ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for lunch, if you could briefly take a step outside just so that we can reset the chairs so that our food and beverage team can ensure that all of our tables are ready as people start to arrive for lunch. So thank you so much so that we can handle that.